Hi. So today we're talking about your eviction trial and what you'll need to bring with you in order to be prepared to present your case properly. So in your eviction, number one, you stated a cause of action, and the cause of action is generally based on non-payment of rent. But if it's not, then you have a different kind of evidence and case to lay out. And so we'll talk about both. So let's start off with the premise that you're evicting a tenant for non-payment of rent. And so it's best to have a number of things with you in case the court wants to review them. And so, generally speaking, the court doesn't review a whole lot of evidence on the justice court level. There's a deeper dive into evidence on appeal. But right now, we're just talking about your first trial. So this is the do-it-yourself. You've filed, and in your petition, you probably disclosed A, the amount of rent, B, the amount of the default, in other words, how much is owed in rent, and then C, the fact that you delivered a notice to vacate. And we've talked about notice to vacate before, and hopefully you're well versed in notice to vacate at this point. But when you show up to trial, you should take all of that information with you. Take a copy of your lease. Because the best way to prove what your agreement is by showing what the opposing party signed. And so definitely show up with a signed, preferably the original copy of your lease, but a photocopy is also acceptable unless there's some question as to its authenticity. The original is always best. So show up with a copy of your lease. Show up with a copy of your notice to vacate, because if the only copy that exists is the one you left in the hand of your tenant, or that you posted on the inside of the main entry door, or that you mailed it to the tenant, that's not going to help you if there's an issue as to whether or not that notice was effective. So never send the only copy that you have of your notice to vacate to the tenant. Always keep a copy and then take it with you to trial. I would suggest you can deliver the original to the tenant, but keep a copy for your records, particularly for trial. So you have your written lease, you have your notice to vacate, and then you should take a rent ledger. Your rent ledger establishes the pattern of payment, and if somebody's going to say, no, I always pay my rent and I always pay it on time, but your ledger reflects that that's just not the case, well, their testimony, if they're trying to convince the court that they did pay you rent, their testimony is going to be put into question if you've got a carefully documented payment history in your rent ledger. So if your lawsuit is for anything other than non-payment of rent, let's say they have an unauthorized occupant, or they have a pet that violates your agreement, or perhaps there's some other breach that causes you to want to evict them, you're going to need proof of those things, right? You can't talk about a pet that you think is there, right? Photograph, video, all of that's good. If they admitted to you that they've got this pet and they sent you an email or a text, that's helpful. If you're going to supply email or text, don't just take your phone. Print these things out so that you can hand them to the court. If you have photographs, again, don't just have them on your phone. Develop them, print them out, take them with you as exhibits that the court might keep, right? Not usually, the Justice Court doesn't usually do that, but they could. And so be prepared to hand them over to the judge. Again, anything that has to do with non-payment of rent, photographs, video, anything that's tangible that you can produce, if you can put it on a jump drive and take it with you, that's also helpful. So be prepared to display your case. Don't just do it all from your memory or think that your oral testimony is going to be good enough. Make sure that you can show tangible evidence. The notice to vacate, the lease, the rent ledger, photographs, invoices, receipts. All those things are helpful. And so be prepared to show it all. Imagine that you're explaining your case to someone who has no idea what eviction is. So someone who has no idea what a lease is, who have no idea any of the facts that you plan to present. And if you can lay it out in a way that makes sense, you're likelier to win your case.